Imagine for a second, you have a book in your hands, but this is no ordinary book. Inside, there are formulas that no engineering faculty teaches today, blueprints of technologies that no laboratory can replicate, and engineering secrets of civilizations whose names appear in no history book. Then someone comes, takes that book from your hands, and throws it into the fire right before your eyes. And what do they tell you? This is for your own good. This video asks whether exactly this scene truly happened in real life, and the answer will deeply disturb you. If you're ready, let's begin. Throughout history, humanity's greatest loss was not the number of people who died in wars. The greatest loss was the libraries that were destroyed, in other words, knowledge, science. But we all know this. The burning of the Library of Alexandria is a story everyone has heard. But what if, before the 1800s, other books were being systematically collected, removed from shelves, and destroyed all around the world? And what if these books weren't about religious heresy or political rebellion, but something far more dangerous, technology? For centuries, the story we've been told goes like this. The Middle Ages were dark, the Renaissance brought enlightenment, and the Industrial Revolution changed everything. But there are serious gaps in this narrative. Buildings, bridges, water channels, and atmospheric energy systems, all considered impossible to build today, were constructed before the 1800s. And here's the strange part. There is not a single document explaining how these structures were built. Not one blueprint. Not one technical schematic. As if the knowledge was deliberately erased. As if someone did not want these technologies to reach future generations. I believe they did exactly that, and kept this knowledge and technology for themselves. Now we come to the real question: who ordered the collection of these books? Why? And most importantly, what was inside them? And do you think they are using this technology for themselves? When we say Tartaria, most people don't know this geography. But when you look at 17th and 18th century European maps, that name is right there, too incredibly large to ignore, too mysterious to accept. Today's historians dismiss Tartaria as a simple, geographical term. But the maps of that era show Tartaria as an empire. And the engineering legacy of this empire is filled with structures that modern science cannot explain. Glowing cities, streets illuminated by atmospheric electricity, hundreds of years before Tesla. Massive stone blocks, of weights that even today's construction machinery cannot carry, sitting perfectly in place with millimeter precision. And claims about those stones being made malleable. Stone softening technology sounds strange, doesn't it? But these technologies existed, a secret stretching from the Inca structures of South America to the Egyptian pyramids. So where were the formulas for these technologies? Did master engineers carry this knowledge only in their heads? No, it was in books. And these books were removed one by one from the shelves following the great catastrophe of the early 1800s. I believe they were hidden. The year 1816 is known as history's forgotten year. Snow fell in summer. Famine struck Europe. Harvests were ruined. The official explanation: the eruption of Mount Tambora in Indonesia drastically affected the atmosphere. But this explanation does not fully account for the scale of destruction that was observed. There are traces suggesting that what happened during that period was not merely a climatic disaster, but a far more comprehensive destruction. Beneath the great cities of Europe and America, there are still buried floors yet to be discovered. Windows, doors, and roads sitting far below ground level, as if an entire civilization was buried layer by layer under the earth. This event, known as the Mud Flood or Mud Flood, is not acknowledged by official history. But the physical evidence is right there. They ignore it because it doesn't serve their interests. And this is exactly where the book Massacre comes in. Alongside the physical destruction, an intellectual destruction was also necessary. To rewrite history, two things were required: burying the structures and destroying the documents. The first was accomplished through the mud flood or a systematic reconstruction process. The second was carried out through the systematic collection of books from libraries. And what they told people was that it was all for their own good. Think about it. In the early 1800s, institutional libraries are suddenly being reorganized. Catalogs are being rewritten. Some works are declared dangerous or heretical and collected. The official justification is usually religious or moral, but in reality, the knowledge inside these books poses a far more practical threat. Installation manuals for atmospheric energy systems, stone processing techniques, construction schematics for city infrastructure, logistical calculations for airships. Yes, you heard that right, airships. The formulas that built Tartaria's massive structures at that speed and scale. Everything was inside those books. These formulas were in the books, and these books were destroyed. I believe they kept them for themselves, because knowledge is power, and people of that character prefer to use that power. They are the kind of shameless individuals who would do anything. Today you look at the buried windows beneath cities, at doors sitting far below ground level, at sealed waterways, and in official records, there is not a single explanation for the existence of these structures. When archaeologists are confronted with this topic, they change the subject. Academics say, "This topic isn't worth studying." But the structures are there, buried, sealed, silently existing. The real fools here are the ones trying to treat people like idiots. This silence in official records is no accident. The book Massacre is the institutional arm of this silence. Burying cities underground was a physical erasure operation. Burning books was an intellectual erasure operation. And all of this happened during the same period, in the same geography, amid the same social chaos. And is this a coincidence? Of course not. So who did this? Which power had the capacity to carry out this dual-layered, both physical and intellectual, erasure operation? The answer to this question is directly tied to how the institutions we today call authority were formed during that period. The early 1800s is the era when modern states, modern education systems, and modern library institutions were being built. So is it a coincidence that the institutions controlling knowledge were established during exactly that period? The ones who rule the world today, or the pawns who think they rule it, did this. From that time to this day, they have committed every kind of evil against humanity to build their own empires, and they continue to do so. Library catalogs were rewritten. Who decided which books would be preserved? Who decreed which knowledge was valuable? Those making these decisions were simultaneously laying the foundations of new states, new schools, and new scientific institutions. In other words, the selection of knowledge was also the selection of power. And during this selection process, Tartaria's technology books were filtered out, because to build their own game, they had to erase the knowledge. If all of humanity had known these truths, they could never have succeeded, and people would have realized how useless they truly were. But of course, people will eventually learn the whole truth and put these pathetic individuals, who imagine themselves rulers of the world, in their place. When we say advanced technology, today, we think of artificial intelligence, quantum computers, and nanomaterials. But the advanced technology of the pre-1800s was something entirely different. A technology in harmony with nature, harnessing the atmosphere, processing matter in ways we cannot explain today. When Tesla, at the end of the 19th century, pursued the generation of energy from atmospheric electricity, have you ever wondered why he approached it not as, "This is a new idea," but as, "I am rediscovering ancient knowledge"? When looking at Tesla's notes, some researchers claim that he made references to ancient sources, meaning books that no longer exist. Today's technologies are actually nothing special. We just think of them as enormously advanced. In reality, they are the discarded technologies of civilizations that were perhaps thousands of years ahead of us. And this is exactly why this video should disturb you. Because the issue is not just what happened in the past. The issue is whether the knowledge that should be in your hands is being deliberately kept from you. Beneath the city you live in, there may be a buried technological legacy. Throughout your school years, there may be an engineering history you were never taught. And the books that held this knowledge, hidden behind countless official justifications, may have been removed from shelves one by one 200 years ago and thrown into the fire. Do you also think that these characterless individuals, who commit every kind of filth and evil to rule the world, could have destroyed this technology? I don't think so, not for a moment. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe all of this is coincidence. Maybe the buried windows are simply the result of shifting ground levels. Maybe the collected books truly contain nothing but religious heresy. Maybe Tartaria really was just a geographical term. But if we're not wrong, if these books were truly burned, and if those formulas were truly inside them, then we are talking about the greatest knowledge genocide in the history of humanity. And the architects of this genocide may still hold that knowledge today. Do you think so too? The real question is, when will you start asking? I say, start asking with this video.